This is Kylara. I am here hosting today's discussion of Chapter 8.63K of The Wandering Inn. I'm going to give a brief summary of the chapter and then we'll launch into the discussion questions. This chapter primarily covers Part 2 of the attempted heist to free Ameris and includes updates on the siege in Rhyme and Eldavin's Torandrian campaign. In Rhyme, the city enters the second week under siege while Flos lies injured in his palace. Zenith and Marisar struggle to hold the walls and are eventually forced back when the legions of Nerhavia's Fallen breach the gates. As fighting enters the city streets, Nawal begins to create a blade that she refers to as her last forging. Back in Wistrum, Trey, Ghazi, and Kalak have been laying the groundwork of a new plot to break Ameris out of prison. The plan relies on removing the guard golems and using an attempted Earther escape as a distraction. Trey convinces the Depth Magus to sneak any interested Earthers away. He then takes advantage of the mage's lack of trust in the golems of Wistrum by exposing Cognita's independence and showing the truth of Zelkir's test. This leads to a reduction in the number of golems guarding Ameris' prison. Unfortunately for the plotters, Archmage Viltak turns out to be an avid reader of prison escape novels and has his own plans set in motion. And Kalak are both captured, and Ghazi is cornered by the illusionists. Leon then betrays the Earthers and reveals their plan to the Archmages. Nevertheless, Minnie Z executes her portion of the escape plan. Disguised as a serving golem, she stabs a mage and starts a war between the golems and mages of Wistrum. In the chaos that follows, the Silver Swords arrive to help the Earthers escape. Okay, that is our chapter summary. I want to say that I really enjoyed this chapter. I know we should probably have at least one more of the heist. And I look forward to seeing how it all plays out. What are some other first impressions of this chapter? Anybody?
I can speak.
All right, Mr. Wiggles? Oh, sorry, somebody tagged me. Who wanted to talk? Go for it.
Toast, that was you who wanted to talk, right?
If you did want to talk, just ping Kylara in the reaction and comment section. Otherwise, she's not going to know who is trying to talk, because not all the voices are known.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Wiggles, you tagged me.
All right. So I thought it was a great follow up to last chapter. I did feel that since like a lot of the plan had to be scrapped and like remade this chapter, last chapter was not as good. Just because it felt like it was a lot of ground that got covered last chapter that was recovered in this chapter and recovered better in this chapter. So I definitely did like this chapter more than the first one, but it just felt that a lot of it covered the same ground overall.
Okay, Toast, you had something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I like this one especially because I think that it expanded quite a lot on a number of characters that we kind of get a little bit of, but don't get a ton of, and it kind of explained a lot of questions that we kind of assumed but didn't know for sure, like, what was going on with all the factions and Viltok and all that stuff.
Okay, Action Kermit says, I liked how Wistrom was on top of Trey's plan from the start. It was stretching my suspension of disbelief that he managed to get so far without being detected. Alright, we have a few people typing, so we'll wait for some more responses. Mr. Europe, you want to talk? Go for it.
Yeah, I also thought this chapter was better than the last one, but that's just because I really love this chapter. I thought the last chapter was great, and that it introduced all the characters and all the parts necessary. And I think if everything had been done in one chapter, and we didn't have a kind of, as was described, as superfluous failed attempt, then everything would have to be fit into one chapter and the characters would suffer for it. And I like that we got all the, I wouldn't say character development, but more of an insight into the factions and how they operate in Wistrom and with regards to Amber's security.
Yeah, it was interesting to see them sort of pull together, even though they're generally portrayed as highly divided. Quinnan, I'm not sure if I said that right, and I apologize if I got it
I think
wrong,
it's Quinlan.
says, on top of this, Viltac's reaction to Trey asking to see Amaris back in, maybe chapter 8.12, finally got a payoff, and they were really happy to see that. Courier, do you want to talk?
Sure. So, thinking about both chapters, the last one, how the setup for Trey, I think the previous chapter was really important, even if it didn't come off as the greatest, because it gave everyone, all the Earthers, including Trey and everyone else, to set up their own plans and then actually act and move on them, which then in a way reveals more information. And then Ghazi got brought in at the end. And then with this chapter, it starts, we get a kick over to Rhyme. So we have a vague idea what's going over there, while Ghazi comes in and is just like, all right, boys, let's do this for real this time. And I could have said that better.
That was good. I mean, I think that chapter cuts are tricky because a lot of heist novels and movies and so on do that as, a way to confuse. It's kind of like a magic trick, right? But
Mm-hmm. I think something that the previous chapter did really well was getting you caught up with Wistram without realizing that Trey and Karn, whatever his name is, have been sitting on the Ghazi button this whole time and are like trying to legitimately pull off this heist without bringing her in at all. And I think that's massive points to them. Well done.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's the last card you want to pull. They know that, and it was said in the chapter that once they do that, they know that chaos is probably going to ensue and a lot of people might die.
She's
All right.
brought in, they lose control.
Yes, exactly. Okay, we're gonna start on some of the discussion questions. So just to kind of keep things in a straightforward manner, I'm going to do all of the ones outside of Wistrom first, and then we'll come back around to the heist. So our first character is Nawal, and the question is, what does Nawal's sword do? Will it heal Flos or just change the tide of battle? I've posted it in the comments so you can keep track. Does anybody have a response? We have some people typing. You want to talk, just drop a ping. Okay, Mr. Wiggles wants to talk.
I have a very, very crack theory that it's how Ghazi's armor and her sword was made. So it'll be, like completely indestructible and super anti-magic.
Anti-magic would be good. That makes a pretty morbid image of an armor forging. Action Kermit says, I think Nowell's sword is going to be powerful but have creepy side effects like Saria's circlet. We have an agreement from somebody else. Okay, we have a few more people typing. I think it's probably not good. Some kind of cursed or something. Okay.
I don't think it's close.
Courier, do you want me to read that or do you want to talk?
I mean, I could. I'm trying to avoid talking, but I'll do it.
Okay.
Especially with this scene, I think regardless of, I want Noala to live. However, this sword, I think, is a really good potential point as a kind of life support item for Flos in his current situation. And this even like leads back to like the way early chapters, how we've seen him like chunk swords and be like, I don't care about weapons because I just throw them away and none of them are good enough for me. So now here's a sword that he needs to hold on to basically for his life. Even if, maybe he's able to recover it easier if he say like chunks it like he's a monkey. I'm not sure. I just think that would be a really interesting potential for whatever Noel's forging and whatever unholy chaos is going to happen because of it.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be the kind of thing. It should be powerful enough he doesn't just throw it away. Okay, we have a comment from Marios. That weapon forging reminds me of a certain anime, specifically Ushio and Tora. It's the whole forging yourself into the sword concept. Action Kermit says, also I suspect that sword is a foil for the paladin sword that Nasia is wielding. Yeah, possibly. Definitely opposite powers. Oh, she wants to talk.
She wants to talk. No. Uh, so so ominous, Kylara. So ominous.
Sorry, I'll try better next time.
the Okay, so there's this focus on the sword being some kind of being a sword itself. None of the actual, if you reread that section where she's taking the metal and striking it, where in any of that does that tell you that it's going to become a sword or that she's even trying to make a weapon that anyone else can wield? So here's a parallel. Probably this has nothing necessarily to do with Pirate Abba themselves, but there is a very classical trope uh, of creating like blood weapons. One of the more modern examples that I can think of that's personal to me and has absolutely nothing to do with uh, TWI, but I think is cool, is there is a series by Alona Andrews named the Kate Daniels series, and in it there's a family of people who literally have transformed their blood into a powerful magical weapon, and they can forge that blood into physical weapons. The classical tale I'm referring to is the fact that blood is often seen as um the medium through which power goes. That's why they have the whole pure blood thing, and why kings talked about their blood being of more value than others. In world, concepts become reality, and if the concept of blood as a medium for, as she says in one of the lines, for redemption through sacrifice, and we've seen blood magic being one of sacrifice, where you give something up, where you bind yourself in the process. There's even a funny line from Terriarch about how if he taught blood magic, there's a 10% chance that mages would start doing rituals and eating each other alive. That is what I'm trying to get at, is that everyone thinks it's going to be a weapon of sort. I'm thinking it's a giant blood magic ritual, and she's either summoning something or transforming something to you know make it fucking weird. I don't know, because that's the only way something, a single weapon's not going to be enough. Talk about something that has to be able to stand against massive, unlimited armies that are trying to destroy Rame. Yeah. Um. And DM Craft responded to what I was saying. It says it's her promise to Flos to make him a sword. Sure, but who says that the first thing she does is create the sword? Maybe she transforms herself into something that can give him the sword that he wants.
Yeah, DM Craft also says that they feel like this is a setup for when Trey returns. It sounds like Nawal might be getting a red class to do all of this. And it just shows how much the situation with Flos is leading into this desperation. Marios says blood armor, question mark. Okay, so related to dark rituals, do we think that she's going to die as part of this process? Okay, Mr. Wiggles?
Um, I'm like really on the fence for this right now. I'm thinking of it both ways. So basically, I do think it's a real possibility that she's going to die, and I'd be really sad if she did. But I could like I can see how that would happen, and it certainly reads like it's going that way, but at the end of the day, like just knowing Pirate Abba's writing style, I don't think she's going to die. So yeah, it's like I'm conflicted about it really heavily right now because I can certainly see it, and all the hints and foreshadowing are there for her to die doing this. But at the same time, I feel like something's going to change at the end.
Yeah, something's definitely going to happen. Toast has a response.
I'm gonna say, I think that the last couple volumes of everything being death saves and no one dying has kind of ignored the fact that that used to happen a lot more. And I think it's probably unlikely that she survives this. So I agree with Wiggles. I want her to, but it's unlikely, I think, specifically because we've kind of built up to a point where, at least in the story, I think people are going to start dying again. I think we're going to see a lot of Wistrom mages die in Wistrom, and I think we're going to see a lot of people in Ream die. And I don't think it's just going to be novel, but I think it's going to sort of exist as a story element to bolster whatever Trey and Trey's stories are going to be going forward.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of power-ups and also increasing risk, which will probably lead to some increased casualties. Mr. Europe, you had a thought.
Yeah, I personally don't think Noel will die, and the main reason for it is I just don't see that being a good character progression. I mean, there's still an entire chapter left to put in like extra Noel parts to make her give her a good death, but as it stands, she was she grew up in this horrible family with like sexist elders, brother who tried to sell her into slavery, and just her father leaving her with just failed metal. And then she's been in the story since volume 5, but hasn't done much of anything. And now she's going to kill herself for a problem that is like barely her fault. It just doesn't seem like it seems like a very strange character arc for Pyre to write. But again, there is an entire extra chapter. She may be getting some cool moments to make her death better. But as it stands, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, Oshi agrees with Mr. Wiggles and says more death.
Did the Toast and Eggs get to speak? I've been trying to note.
Toast did. I'm going to catch up on
Okay.
the comments now. Action Kermit says that he thinks she'll survive, but that she might lose all her Smith levels and never be able to craft again. That would be an interesting situation, like a red class or something. And DM Craft says, is she going to be one of his 7 if he accepts what she makes, which Toast thinks might be a possibility. Alabaster also agrees. They say likely, whatever this is, she considers it an apt apology for a missing Nak Alarama blade, and those things are expensive. Yeah. Whatever she's doing, it should, if it plays out, something big should happen. We're going to go on to the next question, which is going to be, how will Eldavin react to the situation that's going on in Wistrom? So what do we think? Do we think he's not going to care? Do we think he might try? I personally think here, but there's not going to be a whole lot he can escape Wistrom's influence. And maybe he'll throw around some weight there, but he's not going to teleport back or anything. Mr. Wiggles, you have a thought?
I think he's going to just think of it as Wistrom's mages being idiots as usual, screwing things up the moment he's gone, and getting in fights with golems, letting a bunch of Earthers escape, even though I forget if he's more on board with letting them go or if he wants them to stay as Eldiven rather than as Teriarch. But depending on what his thoughts are on that, I think he'll be fine if a lot of the Wistrom Earthers get out. But I think the biggest thing will be that Trey betrayed him, and also Trey sold out his big secret about getting rid of Cognita's uh, you know, slave code or whatever it was, and allowing her to be free. Like that's a big betrayal for him, I feel.
Yeah, were they trying to keep that secret? I don't remember.
Yeah, they were. Eldiven specifically told him to not tell anyone.
Yep, well, the golem's out of the bag now, so Marios says he's going to be distressed but will be committed to the Alien Domus war. Yeah, I think he's not uninterested in what's happening in Wistrom, but a little too far out of the way to directly interfere. And I agree, Mr. Wiggles. I don't think the Earthers really wanted to leave, and they can manage it. I don't think he would stop them. Okay. Let's talk about the heist. So, obviously, we have a lot of plot pieces coming into play. Let's see. What question? Okay, what do we think? How much of the plan was purposeful disruption? How much was planned for disruption? And what parts of things go to hell were Trey and company blindsided by? What was intentional and what was the dominoes starting to fall? Toast has a reply.
I want to say that I think it was pretty transparent with what was mostly planned. I think Trey was largely feeling bad about what he's doing with the Earthers because that was the original distraction. Was create a whole kerfuffle with all the Earth people escaping. It's not like he didn't want them to, but that would draw most of the Archmages away, and then with all the golems gone from the maze, then Ghazi could sneak in, and then Trey could get out with her and all that. I think that kind of fell through, obviously, but kind of in a different way than they would have expected it to. And the last solution we saw there with the golems and the the kind of the false flag attack, I don't think that was ever really intended to be used. I think Trey set that up as, well, shit's fucked, or bleep that.
Bleep things.
Mario says that 90% of the plan was to wing it. Outside elements like the silver swords were a good move. Yeah, I think hiring the silver swords was Trey attempting. I assume it was Trey attempting to do right by the Earthers, and like he knew the plan was going to get busted, but he was hoping somebody would still be able to pull them out of it. Okay, Mr. Wiggles, you have a comment.
I don't think any of the Archmages getting involved, I don't think any of that was planned for. I think pretty much everything else was planned for, but the Archmages themselves learning about it and involving Gallet and Olsenoy, none of that was planned for.
Yeah, I know in the last discussion we had quite a bit of talk about Gallet, what the illusionists may or may not do, and I think we still don't know. We know that they found Ghazi, but we don't know what they're going to do with that information. French Cowboy says, I think Trey might still have another ace up his sleeves. Yes, something, right? Because heists, when they start to fall apart, somehow have to come back together again. There has to be another piece we don't know about. Yoshi?
Literally, that was what I was gonna say. If Pirate has been paying attention at all to the structure of how heists are supposed to go, the biggest thing about what makes heist movies fun is that they make you believe that everything's going wrong, but everything usually is just going according to plan. I mean, the classical structure of Ocean's 11, because that's the only reference I think everybody knows, was that, hey, all of this stuff is going wrong, and then you find out, like, afterwards, they all knew that the shit would go wrong, and they planned for it, and they had like another layer beyond what they were going for. So even in the okay, it kind of ruins the fun a little bit for me. So that's probably why I never even read the fucking thing. But is the Trey is captured? He's Runa paralyzed. Bet you next chapter Runa paralyzed gone. He disappears, and Viltech goes to find him, and it goes like that, blah, or some version of that, with more dramatic yells. I'm feeling a Khan moment coming. Anyway,
Well, he did level up in Plotter, so he may have gained a skill because they didn't say. French Cowboy says they mentioned he talked to the Drake mages. Yeah, so that's probably a piece we haven't seen yet. And Courier says, what are the chances that Eldavin is compromised by Emerhane, that's one of the gods, by now? He's been an uncontrolled simulacrum for quite a while. I mean, maybe. We might be seeing that. I think something is going to happen to the Eldavin simulacrum. We just don't know what. Mr. Wiggles has a response.
This is a response to what other plans we haven't seen that can get involved at this point. I think like French Cowboy just said that the Drake mages definitely are going to play a part as well. But I think also the Death mages, I'm blanking on their names. Dormatu, I think? The
Yeah,
half starfish women. I think they are going to play a much bigger part as well. Probably trying to help out the knights, get all the Earthers to their boat, and that will play a significant distraction.
yeah, I think a lot of people are going to scramble when the Earthers when they realize that they're making a run for it. Toast and Egg says, well, Mini Z isn't dead. She had the real amulet, I think. I think that is actually a really good theory because I was a little bit surprised that the rune even worked on Trey. Maybe it didn't. He was just playing along. But
Yeah. And I think that if Menezi isn't dead, she can free Trey. And if she can free Trey, he can link up with Ghazi. Because at this point, they've kind of exhausted the intelligent aspects of the plan, and it's just fallen into let's cause as much chaos as possible and attempt to survive and get out of here with what we want. It's gone from a heist to a smash and grab, I think. And the original heist relied on the Earthers and the Deep Mages as the distraction, and now it's just killing and running and stealing and attempting to get to Amaris, which I don't know
yeah,
how they're going to get the key at this point, but I feel like Ghazi could probably just cut the locks off with her fucking broken ass sword and armor.
that's my take too. I'm figuring she'll just grab Amaris and go. And in some ways, I think a smash and grab is actually more Ghazi's speed. Like she thrives on chaos and misdirection. Mario says just as planned. Maybe. DM Craft theorizes that Trey has another sand golem, maybe one of himself. I think that's possible, or I'd wondered after last chapter if Mini Z can control two bodies because they sent a smaller one with the camera, and the rest of the body was like hanging out in the room, so maybe she could operate two at once. Trey gets plot armor as his capstone. Yeah, he's gonna level up as a plotter. Has to, right? Oh, she agrees with the double golems theory. And Toast and Egg says it was a fake Trey all along. Yeah.
it's a trap.
Yeah. I'm going to catch up on these comments really quickly. Mr. Europe says regarding Emerhane, last time we saw him able to physically interact with the world, he was worried about what Eldavin and Terry/Terriarch was doing. DM Craft says another guess, Leon got sold to the drowned folk so he can have his safe place. Yeah, he can just hang out underwater. I don't think anybody would be too disappointed. Marios says Trey is going to graduate a la Pisces. Yeah. Leave Wistrom with a few dozen more dead bodies. Cognito's not there to pull people out. She'd just chuck him in a cell anyway.
She also thinks he's the stupid boy.
Yeah. Okay, what do we think, speaking of causing all this chaos, do we think that this is a slow descent into evil or more moral compromises for Trey? Or do we think that everything that's been done so far is necessary? For example, I know people were speculating in discussion about pulling the younger girl into the heist. She ended up, I believe, saying something to the Archmages, but I think that was controversial for a lot of people. Toast has a reply.
Yeah, I don't want to like. It's not evil because I think we're at the point here where literally nobody in this entire situation is the good guy. Um, like Viltalk's entire ideology is that the status quo might be horrible, but it could be a lot worse. So let's just leave things as they are. And of course, the exact opposite. He thinks that things have to change, even if it means, violence and destruction. Um, and now we're into this entire period where everyone is making moral compromises and involving their friends and involving people who shouldn't have to be involved and starting plans that they know are going to cause problems. Like, let's not forget here that the archmages were literally pulling all the golems out and expecting a friggin' revolution and shit. And this is not exactly a very happy situation for anyone.
Action Kermit says Trey is stepping into Flos's tempo. He has valid reasons for what he's doing, but crosses lines that shouldn't be crossed. Yeah, I mean, I think there's also a little bit of the devil on your shoulder, especially with Ghazi there. There was one specific point where Trey and Kylara looked at each other like, should we really doing this? And Ghazi was like, absolutely. And it's probably fairly easy to get pushed over the line in that situation. All right, we have a few people typing, so I'll wait for those. Evan says, I mean, what wouldn't Trey do to fight against Actelios? Killing people is fine, blackmailing friends is fine. Yeah, I think he's decided that's one of the biggest evils in the world and has to be stamped out at any cost. Whether that's right is debatable.
Did he blackmail his friends, though, really? Like, yes, they were being watched, but Ghazi was one of the ones who wanted it to be a choice. And I'm pretty sure if they'd just shut up and not done anything, that would have been fine.
I don't know what. Obviously, one of them did talk. I sounded like they were kind of watching the other ones to see what they would do. I don't know what the situation would have been if they absolutely knew they were going to spill the beans, but they didn't leave them much choice. I think everybody involved knew that once they knew something about Ghazi, they were going to have to keep their mouths shut. Evan says blackmail is about implied threat. Yeah, that walking into a room with Ghazi the Omniscient implies a lot of things. Keep your mouth shut or else, probably. We have another person talking, and then I think we'll move on to another question. Shail Moon says, after Trey Karras dust stormed those students, you could interpret anything as an implied threat. Toast says, sometimes people need some light dermabrasion, referring to the sandstorm incident. And Shayla Moon says, implied threats are all about interpretation. Yeah, I think we'll move on to the next question now. And that's more conflict. It's will tensions between the Will tensions between the mages of Wistrom and the golems boil over following the attack and the golems subduing the mages? Because as we saw at the very end, Cognita knows what's going on and sort of is able to direct the golems from a distance and is ordering them to restrain mages, which I think will probably irrevocably tip the balance of power in Wistrom. They all know that the golems are everywhere, and mostly they try to ignore it. And we've seen that happen several times where like Cognita will exercise her power and the mages generally don't like it a whole lot. But they've been able to sort of pretend that it's not really an issue, but now the golems are fighting back out of self-preservation, not to directly kill people, but they're demonstrating that they could if they wanted to. Action, Kermit.
Yeah, so my perspective on this is that we have Cognita's internal perspective that she's sending her golems to restore order, and they're like doing chokeholds on the mages and things like that, but I suspect that the mages will not view it that way. They think that their definition of order is mages bossing golems around, not the reverse. So her perspective on things is probably going to not de-escalate the situation in any sense.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I mean, you could just let them vent their rage and destroy a lot of golems, but that's not what she's elected to do, and it's going to seem like they're fighting back. Evan says, what would it look like, though? Like, sure, the mages are angry, but what action would they take? I can't exactly see them banning the golems, let alone having the power to do so. Who wanted to talk? Go for it.
I was just thinking to bring up Cognita handles a lot of the paperwork in Wistram for a lot of minor stuff. All of that has been handled by golems for so long that everyone's taken it for granted, and that's like an old realization. So I had a point from that, but I never actually finished forming it.
I think that's a real thing, in that they view the golem sort of as permanent window dressings, and they even said in this chapter, the Archmages said that Cognita normally handles intruders. She takes out the assassins and does all those things. And they've developed probably a level of incompetency through over-reliance on the golems just doing everything for them. All right, we have another typed reply. Marios, you want to speak?
Yes. Actually, if you remember that Trey made an analogy of Wisdom having slaves just calling them by a different name, you could pretty easily say that either golems or the earthers are sharing that position of being unwilling slaves in this system. It's just that golems are just made that way, but the earthers are not free. They're basically not free and are just in a cage. And that's my comment.
Yeah, I think Wistrom has a lot of people that are knowingly or unknowingly imprisoned. Courier says, crack theory. Cognita encounters the Pomley secretary, and the secretary becomes the next administrator of Wistrom. Yeah, that would actually be hilarious. Oshi?
I had to leave for just a short while, so I'm not quite sure what question you are, but here's something I wanted to comment on as far as Cognita goes. There is a sense I get from the way Pirate is oh, I hope you didn't hear that. Giving space to Cognita to be a sort of like roving like she claims Wistrom as her own more than once in the last, I don't know, 5, 6 chapters. It's like the subtle background thing. What are they doing on my island? What are they doing with my people? Like, you can see Pirate repeating this theme that Wistrom is Cognita's place. And all of this tension, all these fights, all this stuff, the politics and things, keep in mind all of this is going on, and Cognita still thinks of it as her island, and the mages. what I'm trying to get at is whatever happens here, Wistrom will still exist, and it will be Cognita's island. Just keep that in mind. It's really hard to understand why that would be important until you realize that people are panicking about fights and lots of deaths and all. No, this is Cognita's island. Nobody's dying unless Cognita says they die. Nobody's going anywhere unless Cognita says they can go. Nobody's doing anything unless Golem Girl with her giant hips says you're allowed to do this. Keep that in mind. Pirate likes to keep things like that in their back pocket and just surprise us at the end. Going like just
I think that would be funny. It's the hierarchy that's always been there in the background, but that everybody, including Cognita, has sort of pretended doesn't exist. Okay, I'm going to catch up on the comments, and then we'll let somebody else talk. Evan says Teriarch, specifically not Eldavin, also wanted Cognita to be the one teaching mages, was their read on the situation. Action Kermit says, I always thought of the Wistrom megaplot as reminiscent of the Odyssey, where Cognita plays the role of Penelope, so she'll be stuck waiting at home for forever.
Yeah, the archmages are kind of like the suitors who are all trying to be the successor of Odysseus, but none of them can actually measure up, and she's just waiting for Zelkir forever, and he's not coming.
He'll be back eventually, based on that theory. Chaos will ensue, and a lot of people will die. Rosie has a comment.
Yeah, just going back to what Oshi said, I actually think that's a great theory, and that I can really see it because I think it really fits well with Wistrom's whole narrative of pretending they're so apolitical, but then holding Amorous prisoner, but then holding all these Earthers prisoners, for it to be flipped on its head, so that as the Earthers escape, suddenly Cognita walks in and says, all right, so I do own the place now, officially, and y'all gonna do what I say, and you can't do anything about it, and basically holds them prisoner, and maybe starts deciding who can leave the island and who can't. It does what you say, that I decide who leaves and who doesn't now. I could see that happening. She might just kick them all out, but I could very much see that becoming a script flip for Wistrom, who's always had all this power, who's lauded it over other countries. We saw them lauded over Liskor. So I'm gonna keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I think it would also be interesting, because if she really claims Wistrom is hers, I would hope that she would try to climb to the higher floors, at least personally. There's nothing stopping her from doing it now, and I think we all really want to see that happen. Also, playing off of your comments on the Earthers, do we think that they're going to escape, or at least escape in this fashion? If they do, where do we think they're all going to go? Will they split up? Will they all go to join the Singer of Tarandria? Theories on what's going to happen, Oshi.
I promised myself I wouldn't talk about this chapter and
Have you read it yet?
Don't talk to me.
Oh shit!
All I have is the stream information and what little I tolerated.
All right. Oshi has unfounded theories. Let's hear them.
This is why I'm willing to speak about it, because my theories aren't. But here's my deal. What is the next step? The Earth. First off, the Earthfolk are fairly divided as to who the hell wants to leave or not. We have the Leon camp. We have the asshole camp, and then we have the Elena camp, right? So
And the
the
drowned
asshole will
ones
protect
camp.
the ones that are still on the island. Leon is self-interested and clearly not willing to go back to any kind of danger. The Leon camp, the division. Kel mentioned something in general. She asked, "Wait, the Leon camp isn't also the asshole camp?" No, because Leon camp is the cowed, afraid, has no fucking clue what the hell's going on. The asshole camp knows what's going on, decides to stay anyway. So the Elena camp is essentially the group that's trying to escape. Now, where are they going to go? I love that there's even this aspect of trying to get them out, but where are they going to go? Who is going to take these kids that Wistrom okay, they're not kids. Let's be real. Some of them are in their 20s. Who's going to take them? It's either going to be somebody who wants access to what they have, or it's going to be because even leaving the island needs the support of somebody with a ship. So who's going to take them? And whoever takes them, they're going to end up in the hands of some power trying to figure out what they know. But that's the whole thing that Elena's group is trying to prevent. So, introducing the Silver Swords to all of this, I mean, the Silver Swords are like the people to, take them somewhere safe and to avoid any serious power. They're the hero group, aren't they? And Kel pinged me and said, and Dowell did invite his team to see his home. So I'll leave it at that because Kel's comment is like the perfect bookend for this. Okay.
Okay, Rosie has a response.
Yeah, I have one of two theories, one of which is Dwarf Home. Many people have suspected that that's where Kara is keeping her Earthers because No Lectus just seems kind of creepy and not like something she wants to get involved with. And with all the war, Dwarf Home's like the only neutral place. So I'm betting either that or Buyer's Land on the idea that Kara says, no, it's a bit too unstable in Tarandria. Maybe we can't sneak you in. And Yvonne is like, I have a place you can go that's safe because there really isn't that much war or anything going on in Israel right now. It's kind of the safest place. And his dad would take in the kids, and from there, maybe they'll get involved with Aaron and the inn or Lake Inn. Or I just had this weird feeling that they're going to end up going to the buyer's estate for some reason. I feel like that wasn't introduced to us not just for Yvonne's sake, but because it's going to randomly keep becoming involved.
I think it would be fun to go to either of those places. Mr. Wiggles.
I do think at least a few of the Earthers will escape. I don't think many of them will. Like, it'll be probably just Elena and maybe maybe a few of the other really, the ones who really want to leave. But I think it'll be just a small amount. I think they'll also go to Tarandria for sure and go to Kara's little sanctuary.
I think that's possible. I'd like to know where she's stashing them. French Cowboy says some of the Earthers might go to Drath, especially with that army of the Eldritch coming over the edge of the world. Yeah, we did just see some Earthers that speak, or they think they might speak the same language as the Drathians. And so that is a definite possibility, especially if they escape with some of the drowned people. EM Craft says the Silver Swords are not going to let these errands die. So she has officially banned all crossbows. And Shiel Moon says they object to the idea that Leon being afraid makes him not an asshole. There's characters we don't always like, but there is a lot of redemption in the Wandering Inn, and so we will see how that plays out. And speaking of characters we don't always like, it was interesting to me that Aaron did not interfere, or at least we don't know that he did. So why do you guys think that might be? Is he in control of himself? Is he at this point sort of being forced or guided by the gods?
To me, it's pretty clear that Aaron is not in control of himself. Just in this chapter alone, where his greatest victory is being able to say both sides have a point rather than just going with, whatever Emmerhane wanted him to say, which was, in my opinion, probably everyone should stay. But that alone just tells me he can't control anything he's doing right now.
Action Kermit says, I think Emmerhane's influence over Aaron is growing, but he needs a priest class if he's going to retain any sense of agency long term. Yeah, right now he's a Magitech engineer, and we'll have to wait and see how that morphs over time. Okay, we have two people typing. We'll see those comments, and then we're going to touch on the end of where we're at in the heist. Action Kermit says the Book of Levels say that priests have inviolable wills, which is probably for a reason. Yeah, so speculating that they might be able to defy their gods. Think, what is Ghazi's plan on quickly escaping Wistrom? She said all she had to do was reach Amaris and not free her. She also activated a message scroll during part of the chapter, and I don't believe we've seen who that was directed to or what that did. Let's hear the wildest theories you guys have. Panzer Soul says probably Archmage has a way out already. Yeah, Amaris may have had an escape plan, but she said she didn't expect to get jumped, so maybe she didn't get that far. Kel says she wanted the latest. What? She wanted the latest chapter in the Sandquin saga. Yes, she was mail. She's requesting a mail copy. Panzer Soul says she can fly after all. Amaris, I think. Yeah, Kel, that is a crazy theory, but I like it. Panzer Soul says she can fly after all. I think Amaris has been mentioned to be able to do that. They just, hopefully the sword works to cut her loose so they can find the key. DM Craft agrees that Amaris just needs to be freed. The escape plan is for everyone else. Yeah, because I don't know if we've seen any specific mentions of how they're going to get out. I don't think a teleport scroll was on the table. Mr. Wiggles?
Well, what we do know is that Ghazi feels extremely confident in the escape plan. She knows that she directly said that, believe me, that is not the issue. And she also said it's not a greater teleport scroll. So we know both that it can't be some magic scroll doing this, and escaping really is not an issue. I think we had mention of a drowned ship nearby during Ghazi's little stroll in the ocean, but obviously I think that's for the half drowned women and their ship. So I don't really know what it could be because I mean there are like two options or three options. There's a teleport scroll, there's flying, and there's a ship. It's kind of hard to imagine it's going to be a ship, and Ghazi is so sure that the ship can just get out of Wistrom scot-free. Flying, the only way it can be flying is maybe like a magic carpet or something. I guess that could work. And we know it's not a teleport scroll, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what Pirate Abbott comes up with for that, if it gets to that point, of course.
Yeah, if the escape goes off as we think it will. DM Craft says Ghazi had a scroll to return to Flos. Amaris would definitely have something similar. I think that's referring to back in volume, is it 1? When Ghazi has a teleport scroll, and Amaris may have had something like that before she got locked away. They do need something relatively fast if they're going to make it back to Rhyme in time to avoid, the palace being besieged and all the people dying. French Cowboy says specifically it's not grand magic, so I think there might be a courier ship waiting for them. That's a possibility. I still think best speed on that is like a couple days to Chandrar, which might be maybe it's fine if Amaris can fly. And the rest of them could just take their sweet time getting back. Dvorak speculates that Amaris has a really nice movement skill. Part-time Hermit would like to see an ice submarine spell from the Frozen Spellbook. Courier, you had a thought?
Yeah, I was thinking with how Maris has, in the few lines she's had, talked about what she considers magic. I think if she actually does get loose, she should be able to, especially with the build-up in Rhyme and the escalation of magic and chaos and potential and everything that's going on over there. I think she's going to be able to pull something strong enough off to yank most of the people of concern for the plot, for Trey, for the Earthers, and for her, and just pull them over to Rhyme or into the battle, and then also just completely push off Nerhebius Fallen from sieging Floats' final city. Like, I just feel like it's really likely.
Yeah, Panzer Soul speculates that Amaris might be able to turn into lightning. My personal opinion on that is that that would be awesome. Oshi?
The ominous remains. Anyway, there was something I want to say. She's been in prison for a while. They keep her starved and limited as much as possible. I don't know what Ghazi thinks she's capable of doing, but whatever it is, it's gotta be super big because clearly the other three Archmages think she can do it too. Which is why they have her. They feed her like an animal. Like, somebody has to feed her.
No, that's wrong. The previous chapter set that up. She's in a nutrition room. Part of the reason she's stored in that room is it's anti-magic and it automatically feeds her. They don't have to feed her. Feeding her is just a bonus.
I'm trying to say that yes, that the situation that she's in, the way she's been imprisoned, that shows how not necessarily they're not afraid of her in that she's a danger. She's gonna kill them. They're afraid of her ability to just leave. She's one of the few Archmages that were shown doing weather magic on a scale that most other Archmages are not capable of doing. Even the few times we've seen ritual magic done to do lightning things, it's just, yeah, it's a prison and it's designed that way for a reason. And I don't think it's that she can turn into lightning. I think that whatever she can do, it's powerful, and it's got to be something that all of the Archmages cannot stop. Like, if she turns... Go ahead, sorry.
It's good. I think that we saw a mention about that last chapter when she talks to Trey because she calls out the fact that he was advised to pick up complementary magics to his sand magic, and she was like, "Why would you do that? Just do what you like." And I think we've seen with mages that a very vertical power structure, where you just focus on one thing, basically makes you unbeatable in that space, and that's what they're afraid of.
Vertical power?
Well,
What do you
okay,
mean
so like Pisces has a necromancy class and a mage class specifically because he wants to be able to do other stuff competently. Like Saria just has now an Arctic cryomancer class, and she's said that it damages her ability to do other magics like fire magic. And so I think if you throw everything into one class, we've seen that yes means you can't do some other things. But what you can do is way better in that space than what anybody else can do. And Amaris has probably done the same thing. She's got a very specific class, and they're not going to be able to combat her in weather magic.
I've always felt like every time Pirate hides someone's class, but then gives them some kind of signature, like Amaris was shown being weather magic-y and lightning magic-y, and they all talk about how she's powerful lightning magic. It always conceals something more significant because we've been told explicitly that to be an Archmage is to study all magic, right? And she clearly studies whatever the hell she feels is important to her, and she doesn't see the differences in the magic as if it's some kind of game to her. It's magic. She learns it because she likes it. And she learns everything that she likes. And I think it's as simple as that. I think it's as simple as that because God, I can't remember her. Like, I'm having that blank moment. What's the other Archmage's name who split her mind?
Valaterisa?
Valerisa. So, remember her. She studies magic because she likes it, but she treats it like almost like every piece of knowledge is just another puzzle in the path to something. And that's what it is for her. It's just a path. And that's what divides the kind of the people who seem to achieve like extreme levels of power and the ones who don't. And to be fair, all the archmages do share that particular aspect within themselves. They just don't. They're just not great people, I guess. All right.
Okay, Rhythm and Bruise had a follow-up comment to that.
My personal guess is actually that Ghazi's wrong about how foolproof the escape plan is. I think Ghazi is overconfident in the, of course, that won't be a problem.
Yeah, I think
That's my feeling there.
we've seen a lot more layers, right? But there's always something else in a heist, so there's going to be another wrench at some point. Shyla Moon says feeding her is just a bonus. Wistrom is awful. Yeah, it is kind of. I mean, it's a meditation chamber that's been adapted, basically, so it's awful because of how they're using it. But I'm sure lots of other mages have used it for its intended purpose before that, by choice.
It's a meditation chamber that they trapped her in.
Yeah,
They
I'm not
trapped
saying it'd be
Oh.
fun, but like the lack of food isn't gonna hurt her. It just sucks. Mr. Wiggles?
That's not what I'm. Sorry, go ahead. I was just pointing out the fact that she's a smart person trapped in a place where she doesn't need to eat and she can think all the time.
Yeah,
I wonder if she leveled up in
she's
something.
been planning her revenge this whole time. Mr. Wiggles?
This is in response to Rhythm and Bruise / Descanter. Like, I do think that Ghazi has, like, Ghazi's, she's very experienced in this type of thing. If she thinks she has a plan that will 100% get them away, I'm gonna believe her. Like, this is what she does. If she thinks that's not an issue whatsoever, it's not an issue.
Yeah, I think she's probably got the most experience of everybody at this, so I think that's a good guess. I'm going to read these comments, and then we're going to do one final question because we've just passed an hour. So that is going to be, what do we think the illusionists are going to do? So you guys can think about that, and while I read these questions. Rosie says Tellum is going to bail them out somehow. Panzer Soul says could even be Flos, who has a skill to pull her to him, because why the hell not? M. King, quote. Yeah, instant summoning of vassals could be fun. Edge Dancer says Ghazi clearly has Termin waiting in the wings for her escape plan. French Cowboy says she also can't speak ever, which must be infuriating. Yeah, they went over the top with the imprisonment, considering that they've locked her in a room where she doesn't have magic. Evan says solitary confinement is one of the worst punishments for a reason. That's what Amaris is in effectively. It's not a good thinking place. No, it's not, but she's definitely been plotting this entire time. Revenge. I'm sure of it. Ghazi is a seeker, not a hider, which Gallet points out. Yeah, and now that they're exposed, she can really play to that skill set, since the game is up, so to speak. What do you guys think the illusionists are going to do? Because Viltac clearly thinks that, they're going to grab Ghazi and they're all on the same side as the rest of Wistrom. I know that was not what we were all speculating during the last after chapter discussion, and we don't really know, because even though they just busted Ghazi, they haven't done anything yet. They haven't tried to grab her drawn swords or wands or whatever. So, theories on that. Kel says, I'm still quietly hoping they steal a bunch of Earthers themselves and send them to their own Earther stronghold in Lascore. I vote yes, more chaos in Lascore. You have somebody typing. This is the last comment, guys, before we end, so if you have any thoughts, now's your chance. Edge Dancer says, I do suspect that Amaris has some sort of skill like Charge Bank that would make her truly fearsome immediately after breaking out, because she hasn't used power for so long. Yeah, if she could bottle up power, that would, like a battery skill. Would be very interesting. Evan says pew pew, which Kel replies to literally lightning in a bottle. Okay. Any other theories on the illusionists? Or shall we just read and find out? All right, I'm not getting any responses, so I think it's going to be read and find out. That brings our discussion on 8.63K to an end. Thanks everybody for coming, and we will stay online for a little bit longer for the unrecorded after chapter discussion.